What if one ancient tomb could rewrite history? Today, we journey into the Valley of the Kings to uncover the fascinating story of King Tutankhamun, where archaeology, science, and mystery come together like never before. This is the story of discovering Tut. The saga continues.
Gyan Guru!
Imagine a young king. He wasn't an old ruler with years of experience. He wasn't a great warrior leading armies into battle. He was only a teenager. Yet he belonged to one of the most powerful royal families in the history of ancient Egypt, a family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. When he died, he was buried with enormous amounts of gold and precious treasures. Then, over time, the world forgot about him. Everything changed in 1922. That was the year his hidden tomb was discovered, and ever since then people have wondered what really happened to this young king. Some believed he died naturally. Others suspected an accident. The most shocking theory was that he had been murdered. Now, after resting peacefully for almost 80 years inside his tomb, King Tutankhamun was about to leave it for the very first time. Scientists wanted to perform modern CT scan on his mummy. They hoped it would reveal new clues about his life, his mysterious death, and even help experts create the most accurate reconstruction of the young pharaoh's face. On the evening of 5th January 2005, the atmosphere around the Valley of the Kings felt almost supernatural. A strong wind swept across the ancient Egyptian cemetery, lifting swirling columns of dust into the air like ghostly spirits dancing across the desert. Dark clouds moved quickly across the sky, hiding the stars behind a blanket of grey. At exactly 6 p.m., the world's most famous mummy was carefully carried out of its resting place. King Tut's body slowly entered a specially brought CT scanner. For over 3,300 years, the young ruler had remained silent, keeping the secrets of his short life hidden from the world. Now, modern technology was about to ask questions that history had never fully answered. Earlier that afternoon, everything had looked completely normal. As always, tourists from every corner of the world had lined up to visit King Tut's tomb. They climbed down nearly 26 feet underground into the small rock-cut burial chamber. Some quietly admired the colorful paintings that still covered the walls after thousands of years. Others stared at Tut's beautiful golden face, the most striking feature on the lid of his outer coffin. Many visitors whispered while reading their guidebooks. Some stood silently, thinking about how the young king had died before reaching adulthood. Others wondered about one of history's most famous legends. Was the curse of the pharaoh real? Would anyone who disturbed the king's peaceful rest suffer death or terrible misfortune? Standing beside the mummy was Jahi Hawass, the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. As he looked carefully at the ancient body, he spoke with disappointment. The mummy is in very bad condition because of what Carter did in the 1920s. The Carter he was talking about was Howard Carter, the British archaeologist who had discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922 after years of unsuccessful searching. Although ancient robbers had entered the tomb long before Carter arrived, they had not taken everything. Most of the treasures remained untouched. In fact, it became the richest royal collection ever discovered. The golden objects found inside amazed the entire world. Their shining beauty was believed to help the king rise again in the afterlife. Even today, those treasures continue to attract the greatest attention. But gold wasn't the only thing buried with King Tut. The Egyptians believed that life continued after death. So they placed many everyday objects inside the tomb that the young king might need in the next world. There were board games to entertain him. A bronze razor for shaving. Linen undergarments for clothing. Even food and wine were packed for his long journey into eternity. Everything was carefully chosen so that the king could continue living comfortably after death. For several months after discovering the tomb, Howard Carter carefully recorded every treasure he found. Only after completing this enormous task did he begin opening the king's 3 nested coffins. Inside the first coffin, he found a beautiful burial cloth decorated with garlands made from willow and olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers. Although the flowers had faded long ago, they still revealed an important clue. They showed that King Tut had probably been buried during March or April. Finally, Carter reached the mummy itself. But now he faced a serious problem. During the burial ceremony, priests had poured sacred ritual resins over the mummy. Over thousands of years, those resins had become rock hard. They had glued the king's body firmly to the bottom of his solid gold coffin. Carter later wrote that no amount of normal force could move it. He asked himself, what was to be done? Carter first tried the safest method he could think of. Southern Egypt is famous for its intense heat. The sun there can feel like a giant hammer striking the earth. So Carter placed the mummy outside under the blazing sunlight for several hours. The temperature reached nearly 149 degrees Fahrenheit. He hoped the heat would soften the hardened resin. It didn't. Nothing moved. Finally, he had no choice. Later, Carter calmly reported that the hardened material had to be chiseled away from beneath the mummy's arms, legs, and body before the king's remains could finally be lifted from the coffin. Looking back today, it may sound shocking. But Carter had a difficult decision to make. If he had left the mummy attached to the coffin, treasure hunters would almost certainly have found a way to steal the gold. In King Tut's time, Egypt's royal family possessed unbelievable wealth. They believed, or at least hoped, they could carry these riches into the next life. That is why Tut was buried wearing magnificent treasures. He had precious collars around his neck, beautiful necklaces decorated with gemstones, bracelets, rings, protective amulets, a ceremonial apron, golden sandals, even delicate gold coverings for his fingers and toes. And of course, the objects that later became world famous. His pure gold in a coffin. And his magnificent golden funeral mask. Removing all those treasures was incredibly difficult. To separate the ornaments from the body, Carter's team had to remove the king's head and cut apart nearly every major joint in the mummy. After finishing their work, they carefully put the body back together. They placed the remains on a layer of sand inside a wooden box. Soft padding was added to hide the damage that had been done. That same wooden box became the resting place where King Tut continued to lie for decades afterward. Little did anyone know. Many years later, new technology would return to this ancient king. Not in search of treasure, but in search of the truth. By that time scientists returned to study King Tut, archaeology had changed completely. In Howard Carter's time, the main excitement came from discovering treasure. Today, archaeologists are far more interested in understanding how ancient people lived and how they died. Instead of relying only on digging tools, they now use advanced medical technology to uncover history's hidden secrets. One important discovery had already been made decades earlier. In 1968, more than 40 years after Carter found the tomb, an anatomy professor examined King Tut's mummy using X-rays. The results surprised everyone. Beneath the thick layer of hardened resin covering the king's chest, his breastbone and front ribs were missing. No one knew exactly why. Had they been damaged after death? Or did they reveal something about how the young king died? The mystery only grew deeper. Now, modern science had something much more powerful than ordinary X-rays. It was called computed tomography, or simply a CT scan. Instead of taking single X-ray image, CT scanner captures hundreds of cross-sectional X-rays. You can imagine them as hundreds of thin slices, like slices of bread. When all those slices are combined by a computer, they create a complete three-dimensional image of the entire body. Scientists hoped this new technology would reveal details that ordinary X-rays had never shown. But if modern technology could now look inside King Tut's body without harming it, could it finally answer the two biggest questions that had puzzled the world for decades? How did the boy king die? And What really happened inside Egypt's royal family before his mysterious death? That's exactly what we'll uncover in part 2. And that's a wrap, folks. Hope English felt a little less boring and a lot more fun today, just how we do it here at Gyan Guru. If you learned something new or just enjoyed the vibes, don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe for more cool lessons and animated stories. Till next time, stay curious and stay awesome.